you would find a very colorful description of student life. And if I were to go further to the west, I would come to my house, where there is a very small rectangle that I entered, describing my house. And I did it a couple of years ago for the first time to amuse my students, and it disappeared after a couple of days, because this process is edited, and people, various editors, look at each of the entries and ask, is it important? And someone decided that my house was not an important feature. So I then went back and re-entered it and put a link to my Wikipedia page, and that apparently is sufficient to guarantee importance. There are currently 7.9 million entries in Wikimapia. And that's a very interesting number because it's somewhat larger than the size of the world's largest gazetteer. You search the world for digital gazetteers, and there are many, of course, out there. The largest, in fact, the largest collection of place names is less than the size of Wikimapia. So there are more places described here than there are in the world's largest gazetteer. What that reflects, of course, is that gazetteers typically reflect only official names. And one of the beauties of Wikimapia is that there are many, many names here, many, many features, which would not be officially recognized. And that makes this, I think, a particularly rich source. If I were to go to Saudi Arabia, oops, sorry, the wrong button there. If I were to go to Saudi Arabia, this is Medina, and you can see that the density of rectangles is roughly the same as it is in Santa Barbara. Each of these is a feature of significance, most of them significance to Islam, and they are descriptions in Arabic, and they have links to other Arabic sources. So this is a worldwide phenomenon. And the number of entries is growing at approximately 100,000, more than that, 500,000 a month. And this is developing into a very rich source of geographic information. Here's another, this is Flickr, very similar in structure to several others. It invites people to register photographs. And this is Uluru, or Ayers Rock in Central Australia. And last time I looked, there were over 3,000 photographs registered in Flickr. Every one of them geo-registered, and every one of them with a description. And the description, of course, includes other links, including a link to the person who provided the information, the person who contributed the photograph. A very nice application of this came to my attention recently. A colleague at Willamette University, who's a biologist, uses Flickr because he studies the Caspian tern. It's a species of bird which has very, very long migration paths, which as a result make it very, very difficult to observe the life cycle of the tern. So what he has done, he's gone to Flickr, searched for all of the photographs whose descriptions include the word tern, contacted the people who mounted those, who contributed those photographs, and now has a worldwide network of observers who help him in his research. Very interesting application of this from a scientific perspective. Here is part of Santa Barbara, and this is one of the 42 photographs which have been geo-registered to this point, which are all photographs of Mission Santa Barbara. And I include this because I'm sure an issue which has already come up in your mind is the question of quality. And here is a glaring instance of a mistake, or perhaps a deliberate one, where somebody has registered a photograph of Joe's Cafe in the middle of Mission Park. The interesting thing about this, though, I think, is how easy it would be to run a little algorithm to delete this. Because this is obviously a violation of geographic sense. You could not have a cafe in the middle of a park, certainly not in California. So a set of rules could be devised which would very, very quickly remove such errors, perhaps in real time, so that when the person tried to register this photograph, some message would appear saying, no, that makes no sense. Automatic editing is, I think, quite a serious proposition here. And what it reflects is the richness of the geographic context to provide indications of obvious errors. Here's OpenStreetMap, which many of you may have seen. This is a project originating in the UK, run by Steve Coast, which invites people to create a global map. And it's a global map which is digital, open, and free. And here is its coverage of a very coarse scale part of England, but here is central London. All of this has been created by volunteers, typically walking or riding around the streets with GPS, recording the street names, and uploading the results as tracks. Then get synthesized by the OpenStreetMap software. A point to note here is that the cartographic expertise, which we would value very highly as part of the process of producing geoinformation, is embedded here in the software. So no one using this needs to be a cartographic expert, because the cartographic decisions are made automatically by the software that's implemented here. So in effect, cartographic expertise has been distributed through the medium of software. Here's the coverage of part of Dublin, and if you were a resident of Dublin, you might well be inspired to spend part of this evening with a beautiful late midsummer, late evening light, riding around on your bicycle in this area, filling in the map. And at the end, you would feel very good. You would go home and have a beer and feel that you contributed to the world. I think we would have to include mashups as part of this world of volunteer geographic information. Here's Google Earth's coverage, this is Vancouver, and here's a mashup that somebody has created and contributed of the three-dimensional structures of Vancouver. And there are now hundreds of thousands, of course, of mashups, most of them volunteered by people, by average citizens. Google software makes it easy for anyone to contribute this kind of information without being an expert. And that's the key issue here. I think we have to include the role of volunteered information in emergencies. And this is a little story about Hurricane Katrina and the relief effort. Here is a Google Earth mashup which includes three-dimensional structures in central New Orleans, including the Superdome. And anyone in the world was able to track what was happening in New Orleans immediately after Katrina through mediums such as this, and through access to volunteer information. Many people were taking photographs at ground level, adding them by linking them to Google Earth coverage so that people could see the extent of the damage. Volunteers played a very critical role in the whole Hurricane Katrina effort. Note, however, a very interesting point, which is that access to this kind of information, which requires computers, power, internet access, was denied to anyone in the immediate area of the damage, because none of those things were available. What we had in effect was a world of information with a hole in the middle where it was most needed. And that surely is a very much a key issue for emergency management. Here's a matchup of my own. This relates to a wonderful story which you may or may not be familiar with, about the work of Dr. John Snow in London in 1854, when he was able to work out the causal mechanism for cholera based on making a map of the deaths in a particular outbreak and comparing them to the location of one of the drinking water sources, a pump in Broad Street. And I've simply been able to create that as a mashup so that anyone in the world can access it. And what I'm using here, of course, is Google Earth. I'm using an 1843 map of London, which is contributed by the David Rumsey collection, is available online. And then I'm using my own data, which was put together